What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're here breaking down the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at Homestead, Miami Speedway. And I cannot wait for this race, mainly because I will be at the race, so hopefully it is a fantastic one. I thought last week's race was pretty boring, so we'll see what ends up happening. But either way, a very important race for these round of 8 drivers, as we only have Martinsville up next and then the championship race. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here, which I highly doubt at this point of the year. What's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. If you want to check out the NFL content, I post it every single Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And really quick, I want to give you guys a lesson on how to not act when playing DFS or gambling. So Lamone Thicks last week after the race comments, Larson and Reddick were hot trash, especially Larson, which was true. The end result was hot trash. But there's layers to this. Guys have issues. Tyler Reddick goes for a flip. Larson has multiple issues on pit road. Things like that happen. That's not stuff we can project. But he also says Larson, almost every week he fails me. Almost every week Kyle Larson fails him. Never rostering either one again. Need to analyze those drivers a bit better, my guy. Now obviously he's just mad that Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick ends up not having a good race, which I'm sure we all are. We all wanted to play them, and a lot of guys ended up getting screwed over in that wreck. Ryan Blaney, Brett Keselowski, the list goes on. It was unfortunate, but things like that happen. But if you're gonna let something like that dictate the way you're gonna build future lineups, especially for drivers that have been incredible all season long. Kyle Larson's been the best driver by far in every single category, basically. Tyler Reddick was the points leader for the regular season. And of course, we'll have to see what happens in practice and qualifying, but Homestead's best drivers are pretty much Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. So for me, I am just trying to say, I'm not trying to roast anybody. I just think this is a prime example of how some people act in DFS and gambling when things don't go their way. Like say Tyreek Hill has 0 yards in a fantastic spot. Maybe he gets hurt. It should have absolutely no factor on how you view a player or driver going forward. So don't let things like that dictate how you're going to build. Keep your emotions in check, because you should completely remove all emotions when it comes to playing DFS or gambling, whatever it may be. But anyway, gotta give a shout out to last week's combine contest winner, A. Remy 401, who guessed Christopher Bell 151 laps led. He ended up leading 155, so that made him the winner. If you guys want to join this week, all you gotta do is comment down below who you think's gonna lead the most laps and how many, in the winner will get a cash prize. And if you enjoy, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and dive right into it. As I usually like to do, I like to take a look at the green flag speed cheat sheet here, which is available in the NASCAR model. Just try to see what guys, before practice and qualifying, we should expect to have a lot of speed in those sessions. So if we're looking strictly at intermediate tracks, I mean, a lot of this is not going to be different from last week. So if you watched this last week, there's going to be some overlap. But Larson, Hamlin, I mean, those are typically your top 2 with a mixture of Byron, Truex, Reddick, Chastain, Gibbs, Bell. Like, they're all in the second tier. But if we look specifically at similar tracks, so this is going to include some Dover races and Darlington, just because those are tracks that I do like to throw in there because of the tire wear and the steepness of it. So then you see Kyle Larson, William Byron, Denny Hamlin up top. It's a smaller sample size for AJ Allmendinger, but looking at his stats at these specific tracks, they've honestly been pretty good. So he might be someone to keep an eye on this weekend. Then Reddick, Truex, Gibbs, if we're looking at this specific tire combination, which is a even smaller sample size. Larson, Hamlin, Byron, Truex, Reddick, Gibbs, which Bell, and these are all like the heavy favorites for this race. So that should be of no surprise. And if we weight this out, basically the same order there, but I mean, if you look at the Vegas odds, it's basically a combination of that, of the top 5, which makes perfect sense because they have access to this kind of data and they're good at setting lines. But these are certainly the drivers to watch out for as far as being, race-winning contenders. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, we have to mention one thing first. That is, of course, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, and I cover NFL, NBA each and every single day/week, you can check out all the extra content in the link down below in the description or the pinned comment. Get access to the entire models for all sports, NFL, NBA, and NASCAR, betting model, cheat sheets, going over cash games, tournaments, optimizer, ownership projections, all that good stuff you'll find it. Link can be found down below. And as you all know, I'm a partner of Stochastic, and they have their Sims tools in full effect with NFL, NASCAR, NBA, hockey's going on. They have all the sports, and they can cover it all for you. You can use their contest generator and pre-contest simulator to see which lineups stack up the best in tournaments, or which players offer the best ROI or drivers before the race or game starts. A lot of you have taken advantage of this. They have a lot of promos going on right now, so if you want to check it out, use the link down below in the description and make sure you tell them I sent you. All right, it's the next day. Practice and qualifying just concluded. It was very early in the morning, 9 a.m. I actually got up pretty much after practice, had to sift through all the data afterwards. And if we are worried about track conditions being too different, it's really not. It was about 75 when they started practicing, and then during tomorrow's race, it's going to be 75, 80 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. So it's basically going to be the same. And if we're looking at the practice data here, I don't think we should be too surprised at some of the names up here, but a couple of guys are a little jumping off the page here because they are not our typical drivers. Like we have Noah Gragson at the top of the board. We will have to see how relevant practice is once we sift through this, but I do think there is going to be some relevancy. Now, some drivers, I know we're trying different things. So Kyle Larson down here, 16th in the 10, I don't think he's actually this slow, especially in qualifying when he gets second, and obviously how good he is at these types of tracks. I don't really have any concerns about that, but Noah Gragson was definitely a big surprise. Like sometimes practice data can be a bit fake, but when you're pretty much first in everything across the board, I mean, your car isn't bad by any means, so he could certainly be a interesting play depending on where he qualified. We'll have to take a look at that. But Tyler Reddick up top, that should be not surprising to anybody. Crushes 1.5, is extremely fast. Obviously flipped last week, but nothing we can do about it. But very good at Homestead. Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex. The Toyotas you'd expect to have speed at a track like this, Keselowski. So I don't think anything that would be too insane there. But let's start with the 5-figure range first here. And all these guys look like very good plays. Not going to sugarcoat it. It's one of those weeks where you're going to want exposure to a lot of these guys. But I do have my 2 favorites. And for me, that's going to be Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick. They were the 2 drivers you would probably expect coming to the weekend that you would have a lot of exposure to as far as being the top potential dominators. And what do you know, they qualify on the front row. Like there is really nothing bad to say about these guys. Tyler Reddick was extremely fast in practice. He'll be on the pole. Best position to dominate was on the pole, I believe, at Darlington earlier in the season. Ends up crushing. This is a pretty similar track to Darlington as far as being steeper, riding the wall, and having high tire wear. Larson was not as fast in practice, but when we lay down a hot qualifying lap like that, shouldn't really be of any concern. And if we're looking at Homestead and similar tracks in 2024, we have an 11 race sample size. Kyle Larson did miss the Charlotte race for 1.5, which is why he's not up to 11 as everybody else. But I mean, these guys are basically first, second in a lot of categories. Both have the most top 5s. Larson has the most wins by far, the most dominator points at 93.4. Everybody else 20s, 30s. So yeah, these guys be on the front row. If you want to stack the front row, I don't have an issue with that. If you want to play one and then pair with one of the place differential plays of William Byron, Ryan Blaney, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But I want at least 2 of these 10K drivers in basically all of my builds, I would imagine, this weekend. Maybe you want to get weird and play like a Hamlin Truex with the place differential. You could do that just to get different, but the large majority of my lineups will have a combination or both of Larson and Reddick this weekend on DraftKings, mainly because the dominator points are going to be more important. You can maybe get away with that on FanDuel because the dominator points don't add up as much, and maybe they have an issue where they finish 11th and 7th, where that wouldn't be a clear lock for optimal, even if they would do a good chunk of laps. But on DraftKings, yeah, I mean, Reddick and Larson are your top 2 dominators. Christopher Bell would be the pivot off of that, and same with Denny Hamlin. I know Denny Hamlin's not in the 5-figure range here, but those are your direct pivots. Those are the 2 that are going to have ownership. Bell and Hamlin will be lower owned. Bell did win this race last year. Now, he did not have the best car. We did see Larson wreck out, who was clearly dominant. Ryan Blaney was also the best car. Him and Kyle Larson definitely had the top 2 rides. But Bell and Byron had some really good short run speed. We had a later restart, and Bell ends up winning the race. And Denny Hamlin also ends up hitting the wall. So really, the 3 best drivers ended up kind of having issues throughout that race, which, you know, that's what happens in NASCAR. And then after that, I would say our tier 3 dominators. So tier 1's Larson and Tyler Reddick. Tier 2, we're going to have Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin. And we're kind of just going down the qualifying ranks here, so it's kind of nice when they qualify, like in order you'd expect them to dominate. And then we have Elliott and Truex, I would say, in that tier 3. Maybe you can throw Bubba Wallace's name in the ring there. Probably more so of a tier 4 kind of guy, but probably won't get to too much of the Truex, Elliott. I'm going to be mainly focused on those top 4 drivers, just mixing them around as my potential dominators with a lean towards the front row. Joey Logano. Somehow won last week. He did not have a race-winning car. I did not play Joey Logano, and I felt really good about that for about 90% of the race at his price tag. And then, what do you know? He stays out. 22 team has an unlimited fuel tank. We saw that at, Nashville? Was Nashville the race that he won where he had no business winning? That was a disaster. I believe it was the Austin Cindric, Noah Gragson issue at the end with 2 laps. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, but once again, Slick Joey, he makes it. He goes to the Final Four, and honestly, he's got a very good chance to win this championship. Penske's won at Phoenix the last 2 years, and who knows, we could make it 3 in a row here. But I like him more on FanDuel this weekend. In the 9K range, I am looking for guys that can potentially dominate. Now, he's kind of in that same range of William Byron, Ryan Blaney. I trust those guys more. I think they're going to have more speed And maybe the Penske camp kind of sells that for Blaney more because they already got Joey locked in this weekend. That's one way to think about it. But on FanDuel, you're getting him so much cheaper than everybody else we've talked about so far. So I think he definitely makes sense there. He should be a borderline top 10 contender this weekend. Going down to the 8K range, looks like some really solid plays here. So we have Ross Chastain starting in 22nd. I think he's going to be viable. The only issue is if I'm going heavier on these more expensive drivers, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to get to this 8K range. Like Ross Chastain looks good. He was second in the 1 lap, 6th in the 5, 11th in the 10. Like he should be able to move up. Should be a 10th to 15th place car at the very least. Ross usually finds himself close to the front at some point in the race. Just a matter of being able to stick it there. I like him more than Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was extremely slow in practice. He qualified 17th. Like he might be somewhat. I don't think he's going to be as slow as what his practice times were, but I don't really see a reason to want to play too much Kyle Busch this week. I'd rather play Brad Keselowski, who's great at managing his tire wear. He looked very good in practice, top 10 across the board in all categories, and he's a little bit cheaper. Ty Gibbs starting on 14th. We're getting a cheap JGR car starting in the teens. He's got top 10 upside every single week. Alex Bowman starting 11th for a Hendrick car. Not a lot of interest there. Starts a little bit further up, but I would say in the 8K range, Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs, Ross Chastain would be the ones I have probably the most interest in. And I would say I'd put Alex Bowman above Kyle Busch. Bowman's been pretty sneaky good at these higher tire wear tracks. 10 race sample size here. His numbers really aren't that bad. 6 top 10s, only 1 top 5 to show for it, which is the thing. And when you're starting at 11th, we kind of want that top 10 upside, or top 5 upside, I should say. Probably won't get to a ton of him outside of 20 max 150. I don't think I would hand build with Bowman. Dropping down to the 7K range, Bubba Wallace might be one of the better tournament plays on the entire slate. He's starting in 8th. I would prefer him over Bowman just based off these practice speeds. Pretty much top 5 across the board. I think the Toyotas are going to bring speed. Obviously, his teammates on the pole, they should be quick this weekend. So I'm in on Bubba for tournaments. Chris Buescher, similar play to Brad Keselowski, but we're getting nearly $1,000 discount for some reason, which I am not sure why. Keselowski was a bit faster in practice, but these RFK cars have been pretty solid intermediates this year, so I think Buescher is a very solid play at that price point. Again, not really sure why he's priced down here. Chase Briscoe showed some decent long run speed, as did his teammate Noah Gragson, of course, but I don't see myself getting the much Briscoe at all. Noah Gragson, like if I'm going to play an SHR driver in this mid-range here, it would be Noah Gragson just based off the practice speeds. He starts 3 spots further back. I don't think he's going to have the best car in the field, but they unloaded quick. And if he's going to have sneaky top 10 upside, top 12 upside, that makes sense for tournaments because guys like AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric are going to be the chalkier plays because they're starting in the 30s and they both have top 20 upside. And I talked about it earlier when we were going over green flag speed. AJ Allmendinger actually it's a very small sample size, but he's been very fast in this sample size of races. Average finish of 7th in 3 races, average running position of 10.6. So it's not like he's running poorly and getting lucky finishes. He's actually been running quite well with 2 top 5 finishes, and the green flag speed numbers can back it up. Keep in mind, smaller sample size, so if you extrapolate that longer, it probably gets worse. But for where he's starting and for where Austin Cindric is starting, they're just naturally going to garner ownership. Now, Allmendinger's numbers after the 1 lap run where he was 12th, 35th, 31st, 26th. And if you're looking at his overall lap time, it looks really good at number 1. But let's keep in mind, he barely ran any laps. And when you're at a track where the tire wear is completely falling off, like if we look at this, we start at 32 for Allmendinger, and then we get all the way down to 34 for lap 18. Well, a lot of these guys ran a lot more laps than him, so that's just something you have to keep in mind. That's why his numbers are going to be a bit skewed in the overall lap data. Dropping down in the 6K range, we have Carson Hocevar. Price has come way up, nearly $7,000. He qualified a little bit better too. Kind of practice where he'd qualify. He should be just running around 15th, 20th all day. There's just not a lot of upside there. Josh Berry in 12th. I'm going to have to pass on. I think it's just too far up for me. If I'm going to play an SHR driver, it's probably going to be Priest down here in 35th just to get some salary relief. And then it's probably going to be Gragson. I would probably say Berry is above Briscoe for me, but it's not like I have too much interest in these SHR cars. Austin Dillon starting in 30th. I think he's going to be viable just because he's cheap and starting at 30th. I don't think he's going to bring a ton of speed, though. The same can be said for Eric Jones. Justin Haley starting in 10th is way too far up from me. Michael McDowell 24th. Based off the practice speeds, we should have a little bit of interest here. That's one of the things, though. I'm not exactly sure how much to put into practice sometimes when you see outlier drivers like this pop up. But I think Michael McDowell should be able to move up. Borderline top 20 driver this weekend. Ricky Stenhouse is starting way too far up for me to have interest. Zane Smith starting high, although these Spire cars have had speed in recent weeks, so I'm not going to completely rule out Zane here. He's definitely been on the rise compared to earlier in the season where he was just absolute trash. Nemechek's going to be a pass for me. Ryan Preece, I just mentioned, he's playable because of where he's starting. That's really about it. Gillen, somewhere to his teammate Michael McDowell. He wasn't as fast nearly, but didn't show too bad of speed in the long run. 13th in the 15 lap, 15th in the 20. And Corey LaJoy, I was just thinking in my head, man, he's so much slower than his teammates, but he's no longer on Spire. I got to remember that. He's in the 51 car, and then Justin Haley starting in 10th. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, Spire speed. But yeah, LaJoy just doesn't seem like he's got much this weekend. Harrison Burton starting in 34th. Practice was not bad for him, at the very least. 25th in the 1, 17th, 15th, 11th. Like, I would probably prefer him over Corey LaJoy this week, I guess. But it's not saying much. I can't play Hemrick starting in 9th. I just can't do it. Can't play Gralla in 27th. And these guys are just going to be so slow. I'm sure Larson or Reddick will lap them very, very quickly. So not a lot to love in this cheap range this week. I mean, if we're talking 6K range, Eric Jones, Austin Dillon, McDowell, Gillen, Preece look like somewhat decent plays. And we're going to have to play some of them just to make lineups fit. Because I feel a lot more confident in the guys up top than I do the cheap plays. So it's just really a matter of who fits at the end. And I just got to make sure it's not Chad Fincham or JJ Yaley. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. We only have a couple more races left, which absolutely sucks. So we got to enjoy them while we can. But I wish you all the best, and I'll see you all